Okay.
I'm just gonna write a post in the Discord promoting it, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, we can probably get going, and then people will join. So welcome everybody on the stream to our post WUDC development panel, giving you tips on how you can improve between now and the next major, whether that's regional or Madrid Worlds or whatever your goals happen to be. I'm going to be moderating a bit, but far more importantly, our panel members with us are Klaudia, Juanita, and Macharia. So as I'm sure you can all agree, they will have a huge amount of insights. I guess to get the ball rolling, the first question that we might discuss is how do you guys recommend at the end of a Worlds taking stock of what you need to work on and sort of building a development plan around that? If anyone wants to jump in.
So I'll start because I think the things that were most insightful for me on how to realize what I needed to work on during a major or how to make the step or take the step further after a major was two things that I think are very important, which is having a conversation right after the major in terms of what I felt I was lacking, which you gotta understand that it's going to be likely something that you're overreacting towards it, or probably you feel very sad about not making whatever was your goal to make, or even if you made it, you think that you are lacking some stuff. So having that conversation and going through the things that like in your mind are fresh that you need to work on is important for you to have a clear picture of how you were feeling at the moment. But it's very important then to let time pass, I say 1 or 2 weeks, and have that conversation again, because then you can compare like what was actually something that you're lacking or what was the reaction to the major, because those are two different things. You're likely feeling as if you're lacking a lot of stuff, but perhaps in 2 weeks time you're going to realize it's not as much as what you thought it was to the beginning. So I think these are two moments that are very important to have. The first one being like right now asking yourself, well, what am I lacking, or what do I feel I lack as of now? And then let that settle in for you and have a discussion with your partner, with your coach, with whoever helps you out with debating. It can be your friends, it can be whoever, about how you're feeling. But I think it's very important to have someone else to talk to, because it is better if you're able to discuss these things and to have like a third person viewing this that can be more objective towards your abilities and towards the moment you are in your debating career. And those things are, I think, are very important in terms of realizing what do you have to work on after a major. But also, I think there is something else that is very important, which is I oftentimes like to take all the feedback I got from all the rounds and see if there are trending things. For example, if I got a lot of feedback from chairs saying I lacked weighing, or that my framing was not as good, or something like that, to find trending topics in your feedbacks. And the second thing I like to do is to see if I have a consistently good position or a consistently bad position, which is, oh, I got all my thirds in CO, or I got all my fourths in OG, whatnot. And then you can see a trend that you should not like set in stone in terms of, oh, I suck at this position, but that can help you like identify the problems you're experiencing. So I would do those three things: have a conversation on the way I feel and what I struggle the most in the tournament right after it and 2 weeks after it. Second, looking for trends in the feedback I got from chairs or panelists. And the third one being like looking at the tab and seeing what positions are the ones that I'm very good at or very bad at, so that I think gives you a clear image of like how to start to get better after a major. I think that's the info I look for. I don't know if you, Klaudia or Macharia, look for something else or do something different.
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, after Thailand specifically, when we broke, but we were a bit disappointed because we wanted to achieve a little bit more. I think the issue was we didn't know to some extent how to fix some stuff. Like we got the feedback, we read the feedback, sometimes it's like what to do next. And I think the best part when you have a lot of time before the next major, which is like, I don't know, 6 months, or when it's like a year, try to go with different partners for plan your time that you will have some diversity. Or for example, try to go and judge if you are constantly speaking, or maybe ask your friends, hi, will you like, if you want someone to prom you, or maybe you prom someone else, and see how the things that changing, or change your positions, because I think then you are getting the best of both worlds. But second of all, as well, try to make yourself like a goals. I remember that after like also dropping some of like the motion type, which I wasn't like very good at, I had a friend which I called, like we sit on Zoom, and I was like, tell me how to win this debate. And the advice which I heard was like, I will not tell you how to win this debate. You will figure that out. I will be just asking you like a questions. So I think you need to try to find a way how to prep differently when you have much more time, because you can be much more risky, right? Like you don't need to go to all of like the 5 prep comps with your partner. You don't need to like divide the things. You don't need to always be like the second speaker. You don't need to always like average 82, or like you don't need to always like break top. You just experimenting as much as possible. And I think this is something which bring me the best thing. The second part, which I think is very important, is judging. Specifically, like if you were speaking the whole year and you were like, oh, I don't know, for example, how to improve my tracking. I don't know how to improve my weighing, or judges constantly telling me, or maybe I'm misjudging the round from the inside, which is very, very common. And I think this is very tricky for the teams, right? Because if you are closing government, if you misread the round, what's happened at the top half, and you're implementing the other strategy, it's also quite different, but this is not the skill which you will learn inside of the round, right? It's very hard to learn how to read the interactions when you are not tracking everything and when you are not looking for everything from the top perspective. So I would say this is the second advice beside like the mixing partners, which I would give. I think the third one, and this is also very important, majors in most of the cases are collecting the speakers from completely different like circuits, completely different backgrounds, which using completely different analogies, illustrations, stories in order to prove their arguments. And I think after you go to the world and you are like facing a lot of like different teams, and you are hearing that, for example, every time when I debated religion, because I'm coming from like Poland, from Eastern Europe, for me it was always like a Catholic perspective. When we were debating like politics, it was also completely different. And then at Worlds, when I heard like people arguing about the Muslim communities, when people were arguing about the politics in like Singapore, like Malaysia or other places, I think it also gives you a little bit of a grasp what type of like knowledge, or where you should also go with like your readings when you are prepping, right? How to make it more effective, that you need to diversify your sources. But it also then give you the benefit, which is not only debate related, but it also give you access to like more information. It also sometimes you will read something fun, but also you can exchange with like friends from like the other circuits, like what are like the norms, or discuss some sort of things. And I think during the online era, when I started to making like some friends like the Asian circuit, I also started to understand some of the things much better. So try to also use this, that like people are usually quite talkable in debating, like they like to share informations, they like to socialize. So then it's also like, I think gave the additional benefit. And it also later helped you to de-stress a little bit in between. And also like, yeah, I would say that that's probably the third thing. And the last one, I would say definitely take a bit of a break. Like, don't be like, and now I'm dropping debating, I will never come back again. Like, I don't want it to be here. It didn't work out the first time. If you listen to some stories, like last year we were discussing this at the Korea trading panel. So if you will listen to the stories of like Surodev, Jessica, or Roy, like how like these people initially like didn't break at some competitions, and then hello, like Roy, I'm like the world champion, Jessica, I'm like world CA. I will not try to like spoiler what Brack will do this year. So yeah, so I would say that's also an important part, to like not giving up, and remember that many people were sometimes like rejected to their initial squads, were sending to worlds, and then become like a world's champion. Yeah. So that would be the last advice, and I will pass to Macharia now.
Yeah, so Juanita and Claudia have covered literally everything I wanted to say. So maybe the only thing I'll add is, I wanted to say don't quit, but already that has been said. I think the other thing I'll say is that don't attach your self-worth to how you performed at Worlds, because many times what people tend to do is that, oh, I'm a bad debater, I didn't do well at Worlds, or I'm a bad judge, I didn't break at Worlds, or I didn't chair the final, so I'm not even that good. I think we should probably understand that this is a hobby or a sport. Let's not take it too deeply, because many times after such competitions, people tend to get depressed. People tend to really suffer emotionally and mentally because of how much they value, I don't know, these breaks and how well they perform at these things. So I think you should probably just, I don't know, chill a bit and understand that this is not a reflection of who you are. And, you know, maybe you didn't break, but you're still an amazing person. You're still a great person. You know, just take it. I remember the first time I went to the Pan-African Championships, I didn't break, and I was supposed to be the best in my country. So how do I go home? What do I tell people? They sent me all the way to another country to win, and I didn't even win. And what do I do? So it took me a while before I could actually even tell everyone how we performed, and it was quite a difficult moment. But I came to the understanding that, well, it's not that great, that, you know, it's not that deep how well you perform at tournaments, especially majors, and it doesn't really reflect on who you are. You're still amazing. People will still love you whether or not you broke. And, you know, find a place where you can engage emotionally and mentally in a very chilled and peaceful way with these tournaments. So I think that's the only other thing I'll add over and above the brilliant points we've gotten from Juanita and Big K.
I wanted to add something that I think it's very important, and that's the way I go when I talk to my children. I refer to the people I train as my children, because I'm a mother, but that's okay. So I tell my children to look at what they have done in perspective, because most of the times we address the way we do it in a major in terms of the end result and the global result, and that's very unfair, because perhaps last year you weren't able to win in the room when you were OG, or perhaps that last year you made 14 points and now you're in 16. Even if that wasn't enough to break, you're still getting better, and you should look at things in perspective and realize that not everything is in terms of the end result, but also in terms of the process. For example, I asked them, did you feel better? Did you feel more secure? Did you feel more confident in this tournament? And if the answer is yes, then I do not care about the end result. You're doing better than what you were doing last year. And I think realizing those tiny steps are important, and rewarding yourself for those tiny steps is something that is not only good for you, but it's like fair for you to do with yourself. And I think most of the times we like to be fair to others, but we're not able to be fair to ourselves. And that's something that I think it's very important, like in terms of how do you look at yourself after a major.
I also wanted to say one more thing about like, don't be like harsh to yourself, but also don't be harsh to others. Like, even if it's not your success, someone else probably also deserve to be at their place, so be a good friend. Like if the friends from your institution like grow higher than you, probably they will still need your support. Probably it would be nice that you respect their success. Probably it would be sad if you will be like, oh, it was everything like a scam, like nothing matters. Probably it's good to still like be around the people, go watching their rounds, like seeing how the things playing out, but most importantly, show that it's like, if that would be me, I would like the people to respect the hard work which I put to be where I am. Like a lot of teams probably, even if they were not like, even if they were like underdogs, especially when they were underdogs in the very beginning, they're probably also like quite stressed. They also want to know that like, you know, that this is something which people valuing and crediting, that this is their success. So try also like, you can be sad and you can be like, I didn't do as best as I could as a debater, but I can still be like a good friend, or like I can still show that I still like respect the game. And yeah, I think that's also like important part.
Yeah, I think this is all great advice. We've received a question from someone watching, presumably on the stream, which is, how do you efficiently prep for a major from a non-functioning debate society without regular practices, coaches, or a lack of motivated partner? So I guess the general theme is, if you're trying to work through these things on your own or with limited resources, what advice would you guys have for improving and working towards a major?
Okay, I will start maybe because it was the case for me. I basically found my world's partner by myself. Because like I was from the place where people didn't debate in English very much. They didn't want to go for like a majors. I knew what are my weaknesses. So I knew that I'm not very knowledge heavy. I knew that maybe like, you know, I would need someone who read a lot, who is very smart, but I knew that I'm capable to like practice a lot, to watch a lot of rounds, that I can try to like, you know, learn some technical stuff. So then I was looking at the competitions and trying to find someone who is like complementary to me. And then when we found, I think what we did was we tried to meet each other better. Like when we were like calling, we were asking each other like some questions, we were prepping some motions, but this wasn't the most important part. I feel like the most important part was we were going to the competition still of like different partners. And then we were exchanging a lot of the experiences, what we faced in terms of, these were the judges. These judges said that, for example, they don't like my style. Or this judge said that like my extension is not clear. How we will fix this? And I think then you are both discussing this, right? I also know that there are the teams which are like, I have very terrible time management. I don't know what to do at the like closing half. And then you are like, okay, I will do like the weighing with the government. Let's practice this. And then you will do the weighing with like the opposition bench. So I think the most important part is identify make the list of like bullet points, what you want to improve, and improve them step by step, one by one, when you are like paired with your partner. The second thing is, now the situation is much better than like 2 or 3 years ago. You have so much online resources, like you have workshops if you want to do it. You have crazy people doing spars every day, every time, like so much of them. If you are a judge, if you want to practice your OA, you will always find someone. If you are a speaker, like for me, the beginning of the pandemic, when like everyone was in the lockdown, when we had the spars where we can debate against like one of the best like debaters, and we try to make this as inclusive as possible, it also helped a lot. Yeah, KDA represent. I remember when Jack joined and I was like, who is this guy? and then when Jack joined, I think a couple of first spars, him and Quivin were not doing very well. And then we were looking at like their progress, like, you know, during just the spars and like asking for the feedback and like debating with like different partners. I think it was like very, very helpful. But also if you are like from the small society and if you will ask someone to help you, I'm sure there will be someone who will give you a lot of guidelines, someone who will connect you with people who will be willing like to judge your speeches or to judge your debate. But I feel it needs to be your work in the first place, right? So you're doing some level of like recording of your speeches. You're making like, you're seeing the motion, you're seeing, Milos said this motion, or like, Tin Polic said this motion. I don't know what's the extension of this. Maybe I will try my shot and like try to like brainstorm with people, came with ideas. If I will stuck, maybe then I will ask them if this is like a good strategy or like good advice or someone else. Basically, I think you need to be very proactive but identifying what you want to achieve. In terms of the knowledge, as I said, I think before, you want to diversify the sources from which you are consuming information, right? You want to watch some YouTube videos, you want to watch some like news videos, you want to read some long articles, you also wanted to check some books, you also wanted to see which motions are trendy like recently, what are like the important events, like what are like the actors which were recently like heavily discussed. And then I think planning to some extent, right? But you don't need to be like very rigorous, being like, this is the week of IR, this is the week of economics. But also all of the other activities which are not directly debate related are also very good for like logical thinking and also for like just trying to get the flow. But yeah, I would say probably this and going to judge a couple of tournaments. If you are a speaker, if you're a second speaker, I think you must judge a couple of competitions to like get the drill of tracking and then see how it's going. I know it's sometimes might sound a bit generic, but I think this is probably depends on your personality, depends on what you want, depends how much time you have. And then you need to prepare your own program based on like all of these factors. That would be from me, but maybe because you don't have a coach, right? Like you don't have someone to go to regularly, you don't have people to spar. So you need to seek outside of your community, but now we have so many other people that I think you will be able to, and if you will need help, you can always message us. We have a lot of resources to share and a lot of people to recommend. So I will pass now to Juanita or Macharia.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, like bearing in mind that I have been very, very like privileged to have a coach and to have a strong debating society in Latin America. I do think that it's important for people to not be afraid to ask, because sometimes you always say like, oh, this is a very important person. This is a person that has done a lot of stuff. They are going to say that they are not available to watch my spar or to help me out. And this is not the case. I mean, there's a lot of people and wonderful people in the circuit that are like available if you ask for a favor, if you ask for tips. I think most of the people that you would think would be like, I do not have time for this, do have time for this, because they are wonderful people. And I think it's important for you to feel free to reach out to these people. Which is something that is very important, to not be afraid and like think of it as if you do not ask, you have a no, right? Because people are not going to help you out. And if you do ask and people say no, then you're at the first point in which you started. So it's not going to be a big deal, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to reach out to people you admire or people that you can like think that can help you out. Most of the people are very nice, and even if they can't, they'll direct you to someone that might be able to help you out. So do not be afraid to ask for help. I think that's a very important thing. And while I had a very strong society, and I am very grateful, I did have a lot of trouble with English debating, because in Latin America we do not have English speaking comps. So basically my only English speaking comp was always WUDC, which is very hard, right? Because you come from debating in another language, in another circuit all your life, and then you go to WUDC, that it's very different. So I think the way in which you can do this, for example, if you're if you do all your debating in another language or in another circuit, is to try to balance it out. Like, for example, what I did with my partner was, even if we were prepping for a Spanish speaking comp, we would try to do some of our cases doing the prep in English, or for example, redoing the speech in English after the round or after the training. Even if all the teams we were able to debate with were doing it in Spanish, then we would go and redo our speeches in English so that we could train like our fluency in English and all that stuff. So I think that that's another thing you can do if the issue is not that you do not have access to comps or you do not have access to training, but that your training is in another language, which is an issue like people from other circuits face. I think it's important for you to do, sometimes you will need to do the work alone because most of the people are doing it in another language, but there are ways in which you can do it and use the resources you already have, like doing preps in English, even if you're going to do the debate in Spanish, redoing your speeches in English, or trying to come up come up to your classes or to your trainings or to your exercises and ask if you can do it in another language. Those kind of things might help you out into preparing yourself for a major that's in another language that you're not used to debating in.
So I think for me, like, honestly speaking, I resonate so well with the question that was asked, because that was me, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. I probably have never had a coach in my life. There was never a society when I started debating, and there was really no one around you could ever ask, because I wasn't even from a circuit where you had icons who you can reach out to and say, oh, how do you do this? So I can start by saying that it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy if you want to be successful. And any semblance of success for you will require you to work twice as hard as anybody else to be able to be successful. So that's unfortunately where you're going to have to start from, because to a great extent, everything you do, somebody will be able to do it better because of everything that they have. The circuit is boosting them, their unions are boosting them because they have competition, they have coaches to guide them. As long as you don't have those things, you just have to work harder than all those people. But how do you do it? And how do I think you do it? Over and above, I think, all the great advice you've gotten from the two lovely people in the call, I think there are a couple of things I want to also add that I think would be great to you. You have to take responsibility. I'm sorry, I have to sound serious here, because it's very unlikely you'll be successful without an ecosystem that can boost you. Like, you can't succeed without a union. It's very, very hard. You need to start something small, even if you're just 3 of you or 4 of you. I'm sure you're not the only interested debater in that place. So find something that creates a union, because one of the things that makes debaters great is just teamwork and working together with other people towards a shared and common goal. And that's what I did. Like, there was no union. We just put together, we were like 5. And I think we just started debating and we started thinking of how to start a club and all these things. So you first take responsibility of your internal union and just put something in place that allows you to be able to train regularly with people from around. And I think all the advice then can cross-apply. Go for spars, go judge, go do different things. Find accessible competitions. If you come from a developing circuit where maybe you can't afford to go compete all the time, there are very many accessible competitions in different circuits. I don't know all of them, but I know from where I am, there's always a competition every 3-4 weeks that you can always attend on Discord. They practically don't charge rate fees, and you can be able to go Uhuru Worlds, all those big comps, in case you need like majors prep, in big competitions. Find accessible competitions, but you also have to take responsibility for your circuit, because as I said, it's very hard for you to be successful in a situation where you don't have an ecosystem that's pushing you. Competition drives a lot of your growth and development as a speaker. So it means maybe hosting an open. I don't know if you're from where and you've never had a tournament. That's what we did. We just started an open, we call it Mashuja. We made it so accessible so that people can come, invite other universities. We started with maybe one university showing up. Right now it attracts like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 universities, and that's progress. All I'm saying, and this is my advice to you, is that if you want to be successful, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You're going to have to take responsibility and leadership over what doesn't exist. Such opportunities offer you such circumstances offer you an opportunity to be leadership. Here in Amaya, I'm from, when we think of such people, we call them leadership. And we give you must be leadership in such situations. Start a union, doesn't matter how many people you are, start doing something. Get people who are interested. Just have like a weekly training session. Watch videos. That's what we used to do. In fact, we used to watch WUDC 2016 and we would watch Boso and, cram the speeches. And then when we go to tournaments, you should hear the whole circuit using the same lines of argumentation because they crammed all of Bo's speeches. They've crammed all of Fanele's speeches. It's just start somewhere. And I think you require people around you for you to be able to do that. Start a union, start a circuit of some sort. It just means having with other institutions, go for spars with them, do things, with especially the rise of in-person competition. That's why I'm giving you this advice. You're not going to just be able to succeed. I think during largely the online era, you could get away with just being the only great people from your circuit, but that might go down, might not be as regular as it used to be. Right now, you must, I think, take up strategies that require you to just get out of your comfort zone and be leadership. Start a union, start training, regular training, start circuit competitions, rounds, tournaments, attend tournaments and all those things. Find, as I think Juanita says, people who are going to be able to help you ask questions. I remember I used to ask all the African idols for things. Most of them never responded, but some of them were lovely people and they always responded. So thank you to them. They send you resources, they send you training, you send them speeches. And the last thing is, I know this might not be popular, but the MDG model actually works. Like, I don't know if you know the MDG model, where he says, I don't know, there's a video somewhere somebody sent me about, because I asked a great guy, how do you become great debaters? And he sent me a video of MDG saying he would do PM speeches every morning when he woke up. I know it's not going to always work, but it's good practice to just wake up and you're thinking about debate. You do prep for 10 minutes, do a motion, record yourself, put it somewhere, record it, save it somewhere, go again, go again, go again. It will definitely improve you. Watch a lot of things. I think Klaudia has already, sorry, I used the wrong word. Anyway, my point is, please, be leadership. That's my only advice, especially if you're a developing circuit. Your circuit needs you. It needs you to be the leadership you are, and just take responsibility. And when you uplift it, you might not get to World's Finals, but who knows, in 10 years, somebody will get to World's Finals from your circuit because of the work you did, and that's success. So just do something that lifts and upgrades and empowers the whole community, and don't just focus on yourself. So that's my feedback.
Okay, we have another question that we've received by Messenger. As a side note, Macharia, I really hope one day that people watch your videos back and quote you in things in the same way that you did for Bo. All right, this one is, lots of teams seem to go to competitions every weekend. If you come from a part of the world where you can't afford to do that, or you're unable to do it due to time zones, do you think that it's impossible to develop to the same extent, or how would you recommend maximizing the small number of comps that you can attend?
Sorry, let me take this first. This just goes back to what I was just saying. Like, I think the over-reliance on online comps will not be good for people in the long term, especially looking at how things are going. You might not be able to, get the big, huge competitions we've had, like, I don't know, Imperial, Trinity, all these big comps that have been bringing everyone from across the world regularly. They will be there, but they don't think they'll be as regular. And I think relying on those will be not the best strategy. As I said, you have to default back to what used to happen to a great extent, or probably a hybrid model where you use online comms that also are regional and rely also on your circuit, and also develop physical comms there so that you can be able to, I don't know, compete at a level that is effective. So I think the first thing I'll tell this person is, first of all, I think you need to shift the mindset from just purely online comms, because that will not be the modus operandi going forward for a lot of the large, very competitive competitions. I think some of them will not. You can't rely on them. You have to create something that allows you to compete within your circuit. And I think that's the responsibility most people try to avoid. So start something. If you don't have them in your circuit, then, as I said, opportunity for you to be leadership in those situations, and just start something that allows you to train for, allows you to grow. Even while you're doing your online comps, you can also have these others that you can also use to train and grow your skills in those specific scenarios. So one, create a hybrid model. And two, I think with the few competitions that you have, I think you just have to follow the advice that I think BK told us, that, you know, the first thing you want to do is judge and speak at different. If you have limited capacity, you have to prioritize. It has to be, this one I'm judging, this one I'm speaking, this one. When you know you're not, what is it called? When you know you're not in a position to afford maybe reg fees, you then maybe apply as an IA and tell them you want to be unfunded, you know, or you ask for something very. I just think you have to do something that, you know, allows you to maximize your output both as a judge and as a speaker, because of the amount of knowledge you need to gain within a short period of time. The second thing is diversify your partners. And the third thing, I think, is what you were told, personal feedback. For the few competitions you go, have a meticulous way of tracking personal feedback. Be in your judges' DMs. I know I've become slacky at responding to feedback, but people who always are in my case will always get feedback. Like, there are those people who say, hi, personal feedback round 4. I'll probably forget, but there's somebody who the next day will return, the next day will return, the next day will return. Thankfully, I keep all my notes with me. I still have notes from round 1. So my point is, you'll probably be able to get feedback from someone if you're persistent enough. You know, fortune favors those who are persistent in everything in life. So push, have meticulous ways of, you know, keeping your feedback, and then use that to be able to grow your, what is it called, your skill set. I think Juanita told us, track it, what is recurring, where am I doing well. I think there was a time on Debate Serious Posting, they even shared this huge template that was a speaker tracker that even tells you which motions you're doing badly at, which positions you're doing badly at. I think it was by Matt Hazel. I think just such part of Matt Hazel's contributions in Debate Serious Posting, it really gives you a way of just, I don't know, tracking things in the most efficient way so that you can be able to work on your weaknesses in a manner that's good. So, but the most important thing I'll tell you is just get off your seat and take off your headphones and go to the streets and recruit debaters and start tournaments and do the things that everyone in those circuits require you to do for the success of your circuit in the future.
Yeah, but I have also advice if you are not persuaded by Macharia and if you still want to do a lot of comms, but like, you know, it's not accessible, take the motion which was set at this comp, because you have access to tab, right? Prep the prop, prep the goth, prep the OG, then prep OO, then maybe also watch the recordings, or if you can join as an observer, maybe do the back half after the top half. So like, you will still have the access if the time zone is an issue. If you don't have a spot, that's also sort out some level of the problems, but also think about that. If you're doing comp every weekend, also like the motions sometimes have similar clashes, you also become a little bit more lazy in analyzing stuff, right? Because you're like, oh, I ran this week ago. At this point, I'm just like repeating myself. And I think it didn't help your performance at all, but also more comp it's coming, there is also higher possibility that you will just lose like the drill to debate. I think at some point, I think I live debating for a couple of months earlier because I overworked myself so much. And then when I was looking for the debating, I was just like, I just can't hear like this motion again. Like, I just don't want to do it. So I don't think it's necessarily very, very productive to do a lot of preps. Specifically, if it might make you more frustrated because you have very inconsistent performance, right? Then if you have inconsistent performance, you put on yourself very, very high expectations. And then also very hardly taking the losses because you don't know what mood will happen when you will be at the major. So I don't think that it's very good for like the mental health, or also like the ability for you to like copy and like function at the majors. So this is not necessarily like the best potential strategy. So I think I gave you two different alternatives. If you want to do it, how to still like get the profit out of this. And I think the second one is that you really don't necessarily need this, and it might create like more issues for you. So if you wait for scale and intensity of the benefits and the harms you can get, I think it's necessarily useful thing for you.
But still be leadership. Get out, friends, get out. Like, please go out there. Your circuit needs you. Sorry.
So I think that sometimes we feel that the only thing we can do to train is to go to comps, and I think Klaudia already said it, but it is very important for us to acknowledge that the only way to train and to get better is not only through comps, and I think most of the times it is the easiest way, but it's not the most productive way to get better. And I do agree with Macharia that you need to build a circuit or a club that might help you with other stuff. Because I think doing exercises such as like pushing yourself to rebut this argument in 7 different ways, and pushing yourself to come up with 10 different mechanisms to explain this same phenomenon and find which one is better. Push yourself to prioritize this case over the other. Like all those things that are important skills within debating, because they teach you to actually be effective in rebuttal because you have different layers of rebuttal, or that teach you how to substantiate your arguments, or that teach you how to weigh your arguments. Those things you can do outside of comps, but those things you cannot do alone, because you need other people to help you out, to assess if you're being good at it, to assess if how effective those are. So I would say you do not need to go to a comp every week. You can like spread the comps out and do these kind of exercises that you can even do alone. They are better if you do it together, if you do it with someone else, but they are definitely help you build a skill set that you perhaps do not have an opportunity to do when you're in a comp. Because when we are in a comp, all we do care about is winning. So basically, when you care about winning, you're not caring about like performing or getting better in a certain skill set, which is something that you can do through training, because you say, well, today we're just gonna emphasize on, I don't know, on mix. And then tomorrow we're going to emphasize on framing. This is not something you do at comps, because the only thing you care about is winning the round. And sometimes you can win the round without emphasizing on framing, or without doing very good rebuttal because you had very good argumentation. So I think spacing out comps, realizing through the tracking that we did with that Macharia told you about, if you realize you're lacking things, those you can do individually, and those you can do when you do not have the money, the time, or like the access to the comps that other people are doing. And I think those are sometimes even more effective than doing comps. So I say, I think like doing tiny exercising, pushing yourself to do those little things that you're not doing in comps because you forget, because you're too into the competition, might help you get better even more so than going to a comp.
Okay, lucky last question from someone also on Messenger. This builds kind of perfectly off of what he was just saying, and also goes back to a little bit about what Macharia was saying in terms of the MDG strategy. But it was, let me just get that up. Here you go. What is your one favorite debating exercise that you can do by yourself or with one other person?
For me, it's weighing exercises because I struggle a lot with weighing. I think most of the times this is not something that we train a lot on, or in comps you can get away with winning without doing weighing if your argumentation is solid enough. So for me, the best thing that you can do when you're doing it alone and when you're doing like individual training is weighing exercises. And I think it's very good because it forces you to do two things. Or the way I do this is you get a motion and you do two cases, case A and case B. And then you have to prioritize case B over case A. And then you have to prioritize case A over case B. So you have to do it the both ways. But basically what you're forcing yourself to do is not only doing the weigh mech, but coming up with what are the two possible cases for this motion. And ultimately, then you're also prepping to spread your thinking. The way I see this is like you're starting to train to cover all the areas of the debate, which is something that we do not do most of the times. We just think of the case that comes to mind quicker, and then we run that case. But if you're training yourself to do weighing, then you're always thinking of what are all the possible scenarios, all the possible arguments that will happen in this debate, and how can I prioritize every one of them? And basically you're doing two things at once. You're thinking about the motion in a big picture manner, but secondly, you're training on weighing, which is one of the hardest things to do in debating. So I think that's the one I like the most, because I think it gives you a very big toolbox that might be helpful during comps. That's the one I like the most.
All right. So as I said, I'd never really had a coach. So all my training was just adopted from what other people told me. So I had favorite ones. I don't know whether the favorite, let me ask maybe a question. Does my favorite one have to be an effective strategy that helps you win, or should it just be fun? Because my favorite training was never really effective. It was just fun to do.
Do both, because I will have both.
Fun,
Yeah.
Debating is for fun, not for anything.
All right, let me start with the fun ones. So I had two that I used to enjoy doing that were really, it's like a kid's training, but I promise I used to enjoy it so much, even though it feels like it's like a beginner class sort of training. The first was always the zombie apocalypse thing where we used to do, where you get into a random room and then you give everyone like 2 minutes to pick random items from places, and then you have to come and then you assume everyone is gonna die, and then there was a zombie apocalypse, and then you have to defend why the item you picked was the one that will save you in a zombie apocalypse. So you don't really tell them what they're doing. I used to use it for training kids, just to teach them style and just thinking on the spot. So people would pick a dustbin and you'd have to watch them argue why the dustbin is the most important thing should your life be under, or should your life be under threat. Of course, I used to enjoy those a lot. And then I used to also enjoy a lot of impressions. We used to do a lot of impressions to practice style. So we would just pick random characters and impersonate them and make arguments for why they are the most important people in the world. So I would watch people pick random characters like Scooby-Doo, and then they have to explain why they think humanity cannot survive without Scooby-Doo. These were like really, really fun things. Like I think they entertained me. They didn't help me in any way win any tournaments, but I think they were the glue that held me my mental health together when I was debating. I used to just find random people to pick. Who knows? My next one, I might pick Juanita and explain why Juanita is the most important thing to humanity. And those are the fun things I used to enjoy. The more serious ones, now, like on a serious note, sometimes I am serious. We used to do these extension strategies that were, I don't know what to call it. It feels like pig in the middle. So you pick like two of you, and then you're on one side, and then you pick a motion. And then you brainstorm the motion. And then when you're done brainstorming the ideas of the motion, you cancel all those ideas, and then you start a competition. So you start now an extension competition. Everyone has 1 minute to run or to think of an extension and to present it in 1 minute. After you present your extension, the next person comes. And while the next person is speaking, you must generate another extension over and above what this person is doing to extend the debate either analytically or argumentatively. And you have to do it. And then you continue like that, like you keep going after each other until the last man stands. So really, like when somebody says, okay, I've run out, like there's nothing left now. Yeah, so it used to be brutal because you first of all brainstorm the ideas that are obvious. So you've already like put in the main ideas, and then now you start again. So over and above that which we came up with, we need to come up with new ideas. And then you go like 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. Usually it would maximum go around 4 rounds. I never saw a situation where we got 8 rounds. Emotions are not that deep. So yeah, I think that was always something that helped me, which is why I tend to think, I don't know, I've never used the tracker that Matt sent, but I tend to do better from closing because of that situation where I was always able to think, okay, this is missing from the debate. This is missing from this analysis because of that extension exercise. Just put yourself in very uncomfortable situations. And I think that drill really, really helped put my mind, especially because of closing. And I was always a member. I always spoke first. It used to help my brain fix. So call it last man standing, call it pig in the middle. Just pick the obvious ideas, remove them from the debate, start again, use 1 minute prep times until you reach the last argument that is remaining in that debate that, you know, and you in this extension exercise, it's not just about explaining the extension, but why you think it was more important than what was spoken immediately before. So it was like, this is my new analysis. Here's why it's important. Here's why it beats the previous point. And then the next person comes and says, mine is better than this person for this reason. If it's an analytical extension, why is it different for this reason? And then, you know, show why, for example, it's the most important. You get, so you keep going like that until you reach a situation where there's really, really nothing left. And the last man standing probably gets, we used to buy cake. So the winner gets cake. All right, that's mine.
Okay, so I have two. One, it's like the less serious one, but I really enjoy it. So if you have a friends who are really like passionate about fighting against each other and that they think that they're always right, after the round, sometimes you will get the best analysis, which you can like learn a lot and actually hear like very follow-up reasoning. So recently after one of the finals, there was like 2 people who were really fighting who was more right in the round. And they were checking, like fact checking the informations. I never get to know so much about some of the country's GDP when I learned during this 20 minutes of panel deliberation, but it's actually really funny, right? When you have people who are still arguing and debating the same motions, but over sometimes like a beer or just like chilling over the dinner. And I think then you are getting a lot of different perspectives, specifically when sometimes people are like feeling very strongly about some motion. And I think they're adding the things like they don't think about that much. So I think sometimes the logic is much more simple to follow. So if you're discussing motions after, I know that some people don't like to talk about the debating after, but I think with some groups of people, I found it quite funny. I think the more serious one, it's checking why this motion was said. So basically, if you see some motion which had like some weird concept which someone named, probably there was some philosophical paper about this, or probably someone created like some, I don't know, there was a movie where there was like in the script, or someone reads some like book where something was mentioned, or there was some philosopher, or there was some political theory. And I think when you Google like the things from the motion, and then when you try to read about this, you can actually get a lot of information, and then you can see how would you rate them as the arguments within the debate, right? So you can see there are like a lot of like information, there are like a lot of data which support my point of view. Maybe I should also like check how strong it would be, how I could weigh that up. So I think it also gave you both, right? Because it gave you some interesting reading, something which you haven't saw before, but it also gave you some level of information, what could be run. Or you can also first like try to come up with your own arguments, then try to like research a little bit. I think this is also a good exercise because you can do this anytime and it's not necessarily really boring. And usually you can find some interesting, very funny stuff. So yeah, I would say that it would be the 2 ways which are maybe unconventional, but I found them quite useful.
Great. I think that's a good note to end on. given that we've hit the time limit and also that we've had brilliant insights from everybody. So to everybody watching on the stream or watching back later, that was our panel discussion. We hope you enjoyed it. This also ends the Belgrade training program for this year. So I hope everybody watching along has enjoyed it. And I also can't thank Geneva enough for all of the amazing work that she's been doing to help this run as smoothly as it has. Good luck to everybody who's still competing at Worlds, and also good luck to everyone just debating into the future. I'm sure you'll all achieve your dreams.